The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystalline cliffs of Kepler 442b as Margaret Chen sat in her hover chair, watching the twin moons set over her vast mining empire. The 70-year-old woman had built this operation from nothing after the Third Colonial War, left her paralyzed from the waist down. Now the Chen Mining Consortium controlled 17% of the galaxy's rare earth extraction, making her one of the wealthiest humans in known space. Her son David approached from behind, his expensive bio-enhanced suit gleaming in the alien sunlight. At 35, he had never worked a day in the mines, preferring to spend his trust fund on genetic modifications and luxury starships. His eyes held a cold calculation that Margaret had noticed growing stronger each year. "Mother, we need to discuss the succession planning again," David said, his voice carrying the artificial smoothness that came with vocal cord enhancement surgery. "The board is getting nervous about your condition." Margaret's weathered hands gripped the controls of her chair. The advanced neural interface allowed her to operate the vehicle with thought alone, a piece of military technology she'd earned during her service in the Centauri Rebellion. "My condition, as you call it, has never stopped me from running this company. The quarterly reports speak for themselves." "But you're not getting any younger," David pressed, moving to stand in front of her chair. "The shareholders want stability. They want someone who can physically represent the company at the Galactic Trade Summit next month." Behind them, a low growl rumbled from Fenris, Margaret's constant companion. The creature looked like a large earth wolf, but his blue-tinged fur and 6 legs marked him as a native of Kepler 442b. More importantly, Fenris belonged to a species that the human colonists had discovered possessed remarkable intelligence and an almost supernatural ability to judge character. The local population called them truth-seers for their uncanny ability to detect lies and ill intentions. Margaret had found Fenris as a wounded pup during one of her early mining surveys. She'd nursed him back to health, and he'd remained loyal to her for over a decade. Now his amber eyes fixed on David with unmistakable hostility. "Fenris doesn't seem to approve of this conversation," Margaret observed, noting how the alien wolf positioned himself between her and her son. David's jaw tightened. He'd always resented the creature's presence, especially after several business associates had commented on how uncomfortable the animal made them feel. "That thing should be in a habitat, not a boardroom. That thing has better instincts about people than most humans I know," Margaret replied sharply. "He served alongside me in the war. He's earned his place here." The mining facility stretched out below them, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Massive extraction robots moved through the crystalline formations, guided by AI systems that Margaret had helped design. Thousands of workers from a dozen different worlds operated the complex machinery that kept the consortium profitable and humanity's expansion into deep space possible. David pulled out a portable holographic display, showing financial projections and market analyses. "Look at these numbers, Mother. We're losing ground to the Martian Collective and the Europa Syndicate. They have younger leadership, people who can travel freely between systems, who can negotiate face-to-face with alien trade partners. And you think your pretty face and enhancement surgeries make you qualified to run an operation this complex?" Margaret's voice carried the steel that had made her legendary among the mining crews. "You've never spent a day underground. You've never had to make life or death decisions for thousands of workers. You've never had to negotiate with hostile alien governments or survive a cave-in on a world where the rescue ships are months away." David's enhanced features twisted with frustration. "This isn't about experience anymore. It's about image, about connections, about having the right genetic markers for interspecies diplomacy. The Zephyrian trade representatives won't even meet with baseline humans anymore." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent your trust fund on cosmetic modifications instead of useful ones," Margaret shot back. "The Zephyrians respect strength and honor, not pretty faces." Fenris moved closer to Margaret's chair, his massive head level with her hands. She stroked his fur absently, feeling the subtle warmth that his species generated. The creature's presence always calmed her, reminded her of simpler times when survival depended on loyalty and instinct rather than corporate politics and genetic engineering. "I've made my decision," Margaret announced. "The company will remain under my control until I choose to retire. The board can accept that or find new positions elsewhere." David's face flushed with anger, the blood flow enhanced by his cardiovascular modifications. "You can't run this empire forever from that chair. Sooner or later you'll have to face reality." "Reality?" Margaret's laugh was harsh. Boy, I faced reality when I was your age, fighting in trenches on worlds that hadn't seen sunlight in 1,000 years. I faced reality when a Centauri plasma cannon left me unable to walk, but still alive to fight another day. This chair isn't a limitation. It's a reminder of what humans can overcome. As David stormed away toward the facility's main building, Fenris remained alert, his 6 legs braced in a protective stance. Margaret had learned to trust the alien wolf's instincts over the years. If Fenris was worried about David, there was good reason. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of the alien minerals that had made her fortune. Somewhere in the distance, a mining drill's deep rumble echoed off the crystalline cliffs. Margaret Chen had built something remarkable here, something that would outlast her physical limitations and ensure humanity's continued expansion among the stars. But as she watched her son's figure disappear into the building below, she couldn't shake the feeling that her greatest challenge wasn't the hostile environment of an alien world, or the complexities of interstellar commerce. It was the human capacity for greed and betrayal that might ultimately threaten everything she'd worked to build. 3 days after their confrontation, David Chen stood in his private office on the 47th floor of the consortium headquarters, staring out at the alien landscape that had made his family wealthy beyond imagination. His genetic enhancements allowed him to see details in the crystalline formations that baseline humans would miss. But today his enhanced vision only showed him everything he stood to lose. The holographic display floating before his desk showed the latest financial reports. Despite his mother's confidence, the numbers painted a troubling picture. The Martian Collective had just secured exclusive mining rights to 3 systems in the Orion Arm. The Europa Syndicate had developed new extraction technology that could process rare minerals twice as fast as current methods. Meanwhile, the Chen Consortium remained tied to outdated equipment and traditional methods that his mother refused to upgrade. "Sir?" The voice belonged to Dr. Elena Vasquez, David's personal physician and enhancement specialist. She entered the office with the quiet efficiency that marked all black market gene therapy practitioners. "You requested a consultation about your mother's medical files?" David turned from the window, his artificially perfect features betraying nothing. "I need to understand her exact condition. The board is concerned about her ability to make rational decisions given her recent episodes." Dr. Vasquez activated her portable medical scanner, projecting Margaret's complete health profile into the air between them. "Your mother's paralysis is permanent, but her cognitive function remains at 97% of normal baseline. Her neural implants are functioning perfectly, and her life expectancy is another 30 to 40 years with proper care." 30 to 40 years, David repeated slowly. "That's a long time for someone in her condition to maintain control of a galactic corporation." "Her condition is stable," Dr. Vasquez emphasized. "The spinal damage from the war was severe, but it hasn't progressed. In fact, her military-grade neural interface gives her capabilities that exceed most baseline humans. She can process data streams directly into her consciousness and maintain neural links with multiple AI systems simultaneously." David's jaw tightened. His mother's war injuries had transformed her into something more than human in some ways, while leaving her dependent on technology and others. It was a reminder that the galaxy belonged to those strong enough to seize it, not those born into privilege. "What about psychological factors?" he pressed. "The stress of running the company, the isolation of her condition, the dependency on that alien creature for emotional support?" Dr. Vasquez hesitated. "She shows signs of increased paranoia regarding your intentions, but given the circumstances, this appears to be rational caution rather than psychological decline." "Meaning?" "Meaning she suspects you're planning something, and her instincts are probably correct." David's enhanced reflexes allowed him to move faster than a baseline human, but Dr. Vasquez was equally modified. She stepped back as his hand moved toward the weapon at his belt, her own defensive systems activating. "I wouldn't recommend violence," she said calmly. "I've taken precautions. This conversation is being recorded and transmitted to multiple secure locations. If something happens to me, certain information about your recent genetic modifications will become public." David forced himself to relax, his corporate training overriding his enhanced aggression responses. "What information?" "The modifications you've had done aren't just cosmetic or performance enhancing. You've had your empathy centers reduced and your aggression responses amplified. In short, you've had yourself turned into a functional sociopath. That would be very interesting to the corporate board, especially given your desire to take control of the company. The silence stretched between them as David calculated his options. Dr. Vasquez was right. If the board discovered the extent of his psychological modifications, they would never approve his succession to leadership. Worse, his mother would use the information to have him permanently removed from the company entirely. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Nothing dramatic. A consulting contract with the new administration when you take over. Exclusive rights to provide enhancement services to consortium executives. Nothing that would hurt the company's profitability." David nodded slowly. Dr. Vasquez was as ambitious as he was, but at least she was predictable. "And in exchange? I provide medical documentation that your mother's condition has deteriorated beyond her ability to function as CEO. Gradual onset dementia, complicated by dependency on alien influence. The board will have no choice but to remove her from power for the good of the company." "The alien influence angle is interesting," David mused. "Most humans are already uncomfortable with her attachment to that creature. If we could demonstrate that it's affecting her judgment." "Fenris is from a species known for emotional manipulation," Dr. Vasquez continued. "The colonists call them truth-seers, but that's just primitive superstition. What they actually do is release pheromones that affect human brain chemistry, creating artificial emotional bonds and dependency. It would be easy to argue that your mother's judgment has been compromised by prolonged exposure." David walked back to the window, his enhanced mind processing the possibilities. The plan had merit, but it would take time to implement. Months of careful documentation, gradual evidence of declining mental capacity, testimony from concerned board members about Margaret's increasingly erratic behavior. "How long?" he asked. 6 months minimum, possibly longer if she fights the evaluation process. 6 months during which the consortium would continue to lose ground to their competitors. 6 months during which his mother might discover their plans and take countermeasures. 6 months during which the fortune that should be his inheritance continued to slip away. Down below, he could see the mining operations continuing their endless work. Massive machines moved through the crystalline formations like metal insects, extracting the rare minerals that powered humanity's expansion into the galaxy. Each day of delay meant millions of credits in lost opportunities. "There might be a faster way," David said quietly. Dr. Vasquez moved closer to the window. "I'm listening. My mother insists on taking her morning inspections alone. Just her and that creature, traveling the perimeter of the mining operation in that hover chair. The route takes her along the edge of the Meridian Cliffs, 500 meters above the processing plants." "Accidents happen in dangerous places," Dr. Vasquez agreed, "especially to people with mobility limitations. The chair is equipped with multiple safety systems, but they could malfunction. A simple programming error in the navigation AI, a power fluctuation in the repulsion system. These things are notoriously unreliable in high mineral environments." Dr. Vasquez pulled out her scanner and ran a diagnostic on the building's security systems. "The surveillance networks have blind spots along that route. Maintenance areas where the quantum interference from the mining operations disrupts recording equipment." David's enhanced vision tracked the movement of workers far below, calculating patrol patterns and shift changes. "Tomorrow is the monthly safety inspection. She always does that route personally, claims it builds confidence among the workforce. And if something were to happen during that inspection, the insurance investigation would focus on equipment failure rather than foul play," Dr. Vasquez concluded. They stood in silence for several minutes, watching the alien sun track across the strange sky. Finally, David turned away from the window. "Prepare the documentation we discussed, but also research the technical specifications for military-grade hover chairs. I want to know every possible point of failure." Dr. Vasquez gathered her equipment, her movements efficient and professional. "And the creature? What about it?" "Fenris never leaves your mother's side. If there's an accident, he'll be there too." David's enhanced features showed no emotion as he considered this complication. "Then I suppose there will be 2 casualties tomorrow. These alien worlds can be very dangerous for creatures that don't belong here." The morning of the safety inspection dawned with Kepler 442b's characteristic purple-tinged sunrise. Margaret Chen guided her hover chair along the familiar route that skirted the Meridian Cliffs, Fenris trotting alongside with his usual alert efficiency. The alien wolf's 6 legs moved in perfect synchronization, his enhanced senses cataloging every scent and sound in their environment. Margaret had been making these personal inspections for 15 years, ever since the first mining operation had carved into the planet's crystalline surface. The workers respected her for taking the same risks they faced every day, refusing to manage from the safety of her climate-controlled office. Today felt different, though. Fenris had been restless since dawn, his ears constantly swiveling toward sounds only he could hear. "What's troubling you, old friend?" Margaret asked, reaching down to scratch behind the creature's pointed ears. Fenris looked up at her with those intelligent amber eyes, making a soft whining sound that she'd learned meant danger. The hover chair's navigation system chimed softly, indicating they were approaching the most hazardous section of the route. Here, the cliff face dropped 500 meters to the processing plants below, where massive industrial robots sorted through extracted minerals. The morning shift workers looked like tiny figures from this height, their safety gear bright against the alien landscape. Margaret's neural interface fed her constant updates from the chair's multiple safety systems. Repulsion field stable, power cells at 93%, navigation AI functioning normally. The military-grade technology had never failed her, not once in all the years since her injury. It was more reliable than her own body had ever been. Behind them, she heard the distinctive whine of another hover vehicle approaching. Margaret turned to see David's personal transport cresting the ridge, its expensive modifications gleaming in the morning light. He rarely joined her for these inspections, claiming they were unnecessary risks that a CEO shouldn't take. "Mother," David called out as his vehicle settled onto the rocky ground nearby, "I thought I should accompany you today. The board has been expressing concerns about these solo expeditions." Fenris immediately moved between Margaret's chair and David, his hackles rising. The alien wolf's lips pulled back to reveal teeth designed for crushing crystalline formations, a defensive display that made David step backward. "Since when do you care about board concerns regarding safety?" Margaret asked, noting how her son's enhanced features remained perfectly calm despite Fenris's obvious hostility. "You've never shown interest in the day-to-day operations before." "Things change," David replied smoothly. "I'm trying to take more responsibility for the company's future." Margaret's neural interface suddenly detected an anomaly in her chair's power system. A fluctuation in the repulsion field that lasted only milliseconds before stabilizing. The chair's AI logged it as a minor glitch, the kind of temporary interference common in high mineral environments. But Fenris heard something else. The alien wolf's head snapped toward David's transport, his sensitive hearing detecting frequencies beyond human range. A low growl rumbled from his throat, and he began backing toward the edge of the cliff, trying to guide Margaret away from the area. "What's gotten into him today?" David asked, his voice carrying false concern. "He seems agitated." Another power fluctuation, longer this time. Margaret's enhanced reflexes allowed her to process the chair's diagnostic data in real time. The fluctuations weren't random. They were following a specific pattern, as if something was systematically overriding the safety protocols. "David," she said slowly, "what modifications have you made to your transport recently?" "Nothing significant, just routine maintenance." But his enhanced features couldn't quite hide the micro-expressions that betrayed his deception. Fenris suddenly barked, a sharp warning that echoed off the cliff face. The alien wolf had positioned himself directly behind Margaret's chair, his powerful body braced to push rather than pull. His species' natural instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The third power fluctuation lasted nearly a full second. Margaret's chair lurched forward, its navigation system confused by the conflicting signals. She engaged manual override, using her neural interface to take direct control of the vehicle's movement systems. "System malfunction," she announced, her military training keeping her voice steady. "I'm returning to base for diagnostics." "Are you sure that's necessary?" David asked, moving closer. It seemed like just a minor glitch. These old chairs are known for occasional hiccups. Margaret's enhanced peripheral vision caught movement in David's transport. Through the transparent canopy, she could see Dr. Vasquez hunched over what looked like a signal transmitter, her fingers dancing across controls that weren't part of the vehicle's standard equipment. The fourth fluctuation was massive. Margaret's chair shot forward toward the cliff edge, its safety systems completely overwhelmed by whatever signal David's people were broadcasting. She fought the controls, her neural interface straining against the sabotage, but the chair's AI had been compromised too thoroughly. Fenris reacted with inhuman speed. The alien wolf launched himself at Margaret's chair, his 6 legs providing the leverage needed to knock the vehicle sideways. Instead of plunging straight over the cliff, the chair scraped along the rocky edge, sparks flying from its damaged undercarriage. "Help her," David shouted, but his enhanced reflexes could have easily allowed him to reach Margaret before Fenris intervened. Instead, he remained frozen in place, watching as his mother fought for her life. Margaret's chair teetered on the cliff edge, held in place only by Fenris's weight pressed against its side. The alien wolf's claws scraped against stone as he struggled to maintain his grip. His amber eyes locked on Margaret's face with desperate intelligence. "The emergency beacon?" Margaret gasped, reaching for the distress signal that would summon rescue vehicles. But another surge of interference from David's transport fried the chair's communication systems entirely. Fenris made a decision that would haunt David's dreams for years to come. The alien wolf looked directly at David, those intelligent eyes recording every detail of his expression, his posture, his complete lack of surprise at the unfolding catastrophe. Then Fenris turned back to Margaret and did something remarkable. He began to sing. The sound that emerged from Fenris's throat wasn't quite howling, wasn't quite music, but something uniquely alien that carried across the crystalline formations with supernatural clarity. It was the sound his species made when they needed to communicate across vast distances, a primal call that could travel for kilometers through the planet's strange mineral formations. Margaret understood immediately. Fenris was creating a record, a testimony that would echo through the crystalline cliffs and be preserved in the planet's natural acoustic memory. The local geology could store and replay sounds for decades, a phenomenon that human scientists had discovered but never fully understood. David's enhanced hearing picked up the alien song too, and for the first time his modified features showed genuine fear. He realized that Fenris wasn't just trying to save Margaret, he was bearing witness to David's crime, creating evidence that would survive long after both of them were gone. "Shut that thing up." David screamed at Dr. Vasquez, but the alien wolf song continued, growing stronger and more complex as it incorporated details that only Fenris's enhanced senses could detect. The frequency of David's jamming signal, the smell of his fear, the exact time and circumstances of his betrayal. Margaret's chair finally slipped over the edge, but Fenris's intervention had given her precious seconds to prepare. Her neural interface engaged every emergency protocol her military training had drilled into her, while Fenris's song followed them into the abyss, ensuring that the truth would survive even if they didn't. Margaret Chen's military training saved her life. As her sabotaged hover chair plummeted toward the processing plants below, her neural interface automatically activated the emergency protocols she'd learned during the Centauri rebellion. The chair's backup repulsion system kicked in at the last possible moment, slowing their descent just enough to turn a fatal impact into a survivable crash. They hit the edge of a mineral processing conveyor belt with bone-jarring force. Margaret's paralyzed legs absorbed none of the impact, but her reinforced spine held together. Fenris landed hard beside her, his 6 legs tangled but unbroken, his alien physiology proving remarkably resilient. The crash sent them tumbling into a pile of freshly extracted crystals, the sharp edges tearing at Margaret's clothing and drawing blood from dozens of small cuts. But they were alive, and more importantly, they were far from David's immediate reach. Fenris struggled to his feet first, shaking crystalline dust from his blue-tinged fur. His amber eyes immediately swept their surroundings, cataloging escape routes and potential threats. The processing plant was largely automated, with only a handful of human workers visible in the distance. The alien wolf's sensitive hearing picked up the sound of approaching vehicles from above, David and his conspirators coming to confirm their success. Margaret's chair was a wreck, its control systems fried and its repulsion unit cracked beyond repair. But her neural interface was still functional, and more importantly, it was still recording everything that had happened. The military-grade memory core had captured David's betrayal in perfect detail, from the first moment of sabotage to Fenris's heroic intervention. "We need to move," Margaret whispered, her enhanced tactical awareness telling her that staying in the open would be fatal. David will send search teams to make sure we're dead. Fenris understood immediately. He positioned himself beside the wreckage of her chair, allowing Margaret to pull herself onto his broad back. The alien wolf's 6 legs provided stable support as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Her useless legs dangling against his flanks together, they made their way deeper into the processing facility. Using the massive sorting machines as cover, Margaret's neural interface tapped into the plant's security network, showing her the location of every camera and motion sensor. Her administrative access allowed her to create blind spots in the surveillance system, masking their movement through the industrial maze. Above them, they could hear the whine of multiple hover vehicles converging on the crash site. David's voice carried through the thin atmosphere, coordinating what he claimed was a rescue operation, but what Margaret now recognized as a cleanup mission. Spread out and search every meter, David commanded his hired security team. My mother's neural interface contains sensitive corporate data. We need to recover it immediately. Dr. Vasquez's voice joined the conversation, her medical scanner sweeping the crash site. No life signs detected in the immediate area. The impact was severe. Bodies could have been thrown considerable distance. Margaret and Fenris had taken shelter inside a massive mineral sorting chamber, surrounded by towering piles of raw crystals. The alien formations created a natural acoustic maze that would confuse most tracking equipment. But Fenris's enhanced senses allowed him to navigate with perfect precision. They're lying, Margaret said quietly, her voice barely audible above the hum of processing machinery. David's not looking for survivors, he's looking for evidence. Fenris made a soft questioning sound, tilting his head toward the chamber's exit. Margaret understood his meaning immediately. The alien wolf was asking if they should try to reach the main communications center, where they could contact the outside authorities. Not yet, Margaret replied. David controls too much of the facility's infrastructure. He'd intercept any message we sent. We need another way. She accessed her neural interface's command functions, reviewing the options available to her. The military-grade system had capabilities that went far beyond civilian technology, including emergency broadcast protocols designed for combat situations where normal communications were compromised. But using those protocols would reveal their survival to David immediately. The quantum-encrypted signals would be detected by every scanner in the facility, making stealth impossible. It was a last resort that would save their lives but potentially doom any investigation into David's crimes. Fenris suddenly tensed, his ears swiveling toward a sound Margaret couldn't hear. Through the sorting chamber's transparent walls, they could see armed figures moving through the processing plant. David had brought more than just security personnel. These were military contractors, the kind of people who asked no questions and left no witnesses. Temperature scan shows elevated readings in Section 7, one of the contractors reported through his communicator. Could be residual body heat from survivors. Margaret's enhanced tactical training kicked in automatically. She began calculating their chances, mapping potential escape routes, identifying weapons and resources they could use. But even with her military experience, she was a paralyzed woman, accompanied by an alien wolf, facing professional killers in an environment her son controlled completely. That was when Fenris did something extraordinary. The alien wolf began to sing again, but this time his song was different. Instead of the mournful testimony he'd created during their fall, this was something more complex, more purposeful. The sound resonated through the crystalline formations around them, setting up harmonic frequencies that Margaret had never heard before. The crystals began to respond. The massive mineral formations that filled the sorting chamber started to vibrate in sympathy with Fenris's song, creating interference patterns that confused electronic scanning equipment. The contractors' thermal readings became jumbled. Their motion detectors triggered false alarms throughout the facility. What the hell is that noise? David's voice crackled through the communicators, distorted by the acoustic chaos Fenris was creating. Dr. Vasquez was already running diagnostics on her equipment. Some kind of sonic interference. The crystalline formations are acting like natural amplifiers, but I've never seen patterns like this before. Margaret realized what Fenris was doing. The alien wolf wasn't just hiding them. He was turning the entire processing plant into a resonance chamber, using his species' natural abilities to communicate with the planet itself. The song he'd sung during their fall had been preserved in the crystalline cliffs above, and now he was calling it back, amplifying it through the tons of processed minerals surrounding them. The result was a cacophony that made electronic surveillance impossible. But more than that, Fenris was creating a beacon that would be detectable to anyone who understood the planet's acoustic properties. The indigenous research stations would hear it. The xenobiology teams would recognize it as something unprecedented. David's search teams were forced to retreat from Section 7 as their equipment failed completely. The interference made it impossible to coordinate their movements or maintain contact with their command post. For the first time since the sabotage began, Margaret and Fenris had bought themselves breathing room. "You magnificent creature," Margaret whispered, stroking Fenris's fur as his song gradually faded. "You're not just hiding us, you're calling for help." Fenris's amber eyes met hers with unmistakable intelligence. His species might look like primitive wolves to human observers, but they possessed abilities that human science was only beginning to understand. And right now, those abilities were the only thing standing between Margaret and her son's murderous ambitions. In the distance, they could hear David shouting orders to his increasingly frustrated search teams. The resonance interference had disrupted his carefully planned cleanup operation, giving Margaret time to plan her next move. But she knew this reprieve was temporary. David would eventually bring in different equipment, different personnel, different strategies. The real question was whether help would arrive before David found them, and whether anyone would believe the testimony of an alien wolf when the most powerful human in this sector of space claimed his mother had died in a tragic accident. Dr. Sarah Kim was analyzing mineral resonance patterns at the Xenobiology Research Station when Fenris's song reached her instruments. The acoustic signature was unlike anything in her 15 years of studying Kepler 442b's indigenous lifeforms. The complex harmonic patterns suggested intelligence far beyond what previous studies had indicated for the local wolf-like species. "Marcus, come look at this," she called to her research partner, pointing at the spectral analysis scrolling across her holographic display. "These frequencies are too organized to be natural vocalizations." Dr. Marcus Webb hurried over from his genetic sequencing station, his dark eyes widening as he studied the data. "That's coming from the direction of the Chen Mining Consortium. But those patterns, they're almost like a language." Sarah's enhanced hearing implants allowed her to detect nuances in the alien song that baseline humans would miss. She'd spent years learning to interpret the communication methods of various indigenous species. But this was something unprecedented. It's not just language, it's a distress call, and it's being amplified by the crystalline formations in the processing facility. The research station's communication array immediately began recording the phenomenon, but Sarah knew they needed to investigate in person. The Chen Consortium had never allowed independent researchers access to their facilities, claiming corporate security concerns. But this acoustic event might represent first contact with a genuinely sapient alien species. "We need to contact the Colonial Authority," Marcus said, already activating his long-range transmitter. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." Meanwhile, in the processing facility, Margaret and Fenris had found temporary refuge in an abandoned maintenance tunnel. The service corridor ran beneath the main sorting chambers, providing access to the plant's power distribution systems. Margaret's neural interface had mapped the entire network, showing her exactly how David's people were coordinating their search. "They're bringing in military-grade scanners," she told Fenris, reading the intercepted communications data. "The acoustic interference won't stop them for much longer." Fenris responded with a series of soft vocalizations, his amber eyes focused on something Margaret couldn't see. The alien wolf's enhanced senses were detecting approaching vehicles, but these weren't David's security forces. The engine signatures were different, the flight patterns more cautious and exploratory. Through the facility's external cameras, Margaret watched a Colonial Authority transport ship settle onto the main landing pad. The vessel bore the insignia of the Xenobiology Division, and its passengers wore the distinctive white uniforms of independent researchers rather than corporate security. Dr. Sarah Kim emerged from the transport with her recording equipment already active, scanning for the source of the acoustic phenomenon that had brought her here. Behind her, Dr. Webb carried a portable laboratory, capable of analyzing genetic samples and communication patterns in real time. David intercepted them before they could begin their investigation, his enhanced features arranged in an expression of professional concern. "Doctors, I appreciate your interest, but this facility is experiencing a safety emergency. My mother was killed in an accident this morning, and we're conducting search and recovery operations." "Our condolences," Dr. Kim replied diplomatically, "but we're here about the acoustic phenomenon we detected an hour ago. The patterns suggest communication by an unknown sapient species." "I'm afraid that's impossible," David said smoothly. "The only indigenous life forms in this area are simple predators. What you detected was probably interference from our mining equipment interacting with the mineral formations." Dr. Webb activated his scanner, checking for biological signatures in the immediate area. "Our readings indicate the vocalizations came from a single organism, not mechanical equipment. We'd like permission to investigate the source." Margaret watched this exchange through the facility's security network, recognizing her opportunity. If she could contact the researchers without alerting David to her survival, they might be able to preserve the evidence of his attempted murder. She accessed her neural interface's emergency protocols, crafting a coded message that would appear to be routine maintenance data to anyone monitoring the facility's communications. But Dr. Kim's equipment would recognize it as something more significant. A digital signature embedded with temporal markers, proving Margaret Chen was alive and in immediate danger. The message propagated through the facility's network, disguised as a diagnostic routine for the mineral processing systems. Within minutes, Dr. Kim's sensitive equipment detected the anomaly and began decoding its contents. "Dr. Webb," she said quietly, stepping away from David and his security personnel, "we're receiving structured data transmissions from inside the facility. This isn't equipment malfunction. Someone is trying to communicate with us." David's enhanced hearing caught fragments of their conversation, and his artificially modified features tightened with barely controlled anger. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," he said, signaling to his security team. "This is a private facility and we're dealing with a family tragedy." "We understand your loss," Dr. Kim replied, "but we have a legal mandate to investigate potential sapient contact. The Colonial Charter gives us authority to override local security concerns in such cases." Margaret's neural interface detected David's people moving to surround the researchers. Her son was preparing to escalate the situation, possibly violently, to prevent any investigation that might uncover his crimes. She made a desperate decision. Using her administrative access to the facility's emergency systems, Margaret triggered a general alarm throughout the processing plant. Warning lights began flashing, emergency broadcasts filled the air with evacuation instructions, and automatic safety protocols locked down all hazardous operations. In the chaos that followed, Fenris began singing again. But this time, his song carried new complexity, incorporating elements from Margaret's digital message and the researchers' scanner frequencies. The alien wolf was learning to communicate with human technology, adapting his species' natural abilities to interface with their electronic systems. Dr. Kim's equipment registered the breakthrough immediately. "Marcus, look at this. The organism is modulating its vocalizations to match our scanner frequencies. It's trying to establish a communication protocol." The implications were staggering. They weren't just dealing with an intelligent alien species. They were witnessing the first real-time attempt at interspecies technological communication. Fenris was proving that his people possessed not just intelligence but the ability to adapt and learn human methods. David realized he was losing control of the situation. The arrival of independent researchers, the facility-wide emergency alarm, and now evidence of genuine alien intelligence. All of it threatened to expose his carefully planned murder. His enhanced aggression programming began overriding his calculated approach. "Seize their equipment," he ordered his security team. "This facility is under corporate protection, and these people are interfering with critical operations." But Margaret had one more card to play. Her neural interface contained not just the evidence of David's sabotage, but complete administrative access to the consortium's entire operational network. With a thought, she activated the mining facility's external communications array, broadcasting an open distress signal on all Colonial Authority frequencies. The message was simple but devastating. "Margaret Chen, CEO of Chen Mining Consortium, requesting immediate assistance. Attempted murder by Heir David Chen. Evidence preserved. Alien witness present." The signal propagated through the planet's communication satellites and reached every colonial authority facility within 3 light years. Within minutes, emergency response protocols activated across multiple systems, dispatching investigation teams, legal authorities, and military support. David's enhanced senses detected the outgoing transmission, and his artificially modified psychology finally snapped. Pulling out a military-grade plasma weapon, he turned toward the researchers who had unwittingly triggered his mother's desperate gambit. "Nobody leaves this facility alive," he snarled, his genetic modifications stripping away the last pretense of humanity. "Not until I clean up this mess." But Fenris had been waiting for this moment. The alien wolf's song reached a crescendo that shattered crystal formations throughout the processing plant, creating a resonance cascade that interfered with electronic weapon systems. David's plasma gun flickered and died in his hands, its power cell drained by the acoustic overload. In the tunnel below, Margaret smiled grimly as she monitored the chaos through her neural interface. Her son had revealed his true nature to independent witnesses, destroyed his own credibility, and provided irrefutable evidence of his criminal intent. The truth was finally coming to light, backed by the testimony of the most reliable witness in the galaxy, an alien intelligence that could preserve and replay events with perfect accuracy. David's enhanced cunning had been no match for the combined determination of a war veteran and her loyal companion from the stars. The Colonial Authority response was swift and overwhelming. Within 2 hours of Margaret's distress signal, 3 military transports descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with the insignia of the Galactic Justice Division. Leading the investigation was Commander Elena Vasquez Santos, a veteran prosecutor known for her ruthless pursuit of corporate corruption. David Chen stood in the facility's main conference room, surrounded by his security team and legal advisors, watching the Colonial Authority forces establish a perimeter around his empire. His enhanced features remained calm, but his artificially modified nervous system was struggling to process the rapid collapse of his carefully planned scheme. "This is a violation of corporate sovereignty," David's lead attorney argued as Commander Vasquez Santos entered the room with a full forensic team. "The Chen Mining Consortium operates under legitimate colonial charters. You have no authority to—" "We have a direct distress call from Margaret Chen, your CEO, claiming attempted murder," the commander interrupted, her augmented voice carrying absolute authority. "That gives us jurisdiction under colonial emergency protocols. Your corporate charter doesn't protect you from criminal prosecution." David's enhanced intelligence quickly calculated his remaining options. The facility's communication logs would show Margaret's message, but without her physical presence, he could claim the transmission was fabricated. Dr. Vasquez had disappeared during the chaos, taking her damaging evidence about his genetic modifications with her. If he could maintain his story about a tragic accident, he might still survive this investigation. "My mother suffered a catastrophic system failure during her safety inspection," David said, his voice carrying program sincerity. "Her hover chair malfunctioned and she fell into the Meridian Cliffs. We've been conducting search and rescue operations all morning." Commander Vasquez Santos activated her portable forensic scanner, which immediately detected the quantum signatures left by David's sabotage equipment. "Interesting, because our preliminary scans show evidence of directed electromagnetic interference at the crash site, the kind of interference that would require military-grade jamming technology." In the maintenance tunnels below, Margaret monitored the investigation through her neural interface. She could see David's security forces being systematically disarmed and detained, his carefully constructed empire crumbling under colonial authority scrutiny. But she knew David would continue to deny everything until faced with irrefutable proof. Fenris seemed to understand the situation intuitively. The alien wolf began singing again, but this time his vocalizations were directed toward the acoustic memory stored in the facility's crystalline foundations. The mineral formations responded to his call, beginning to replay the sounds they had preserved from that morning's events. Dr. Sarah Kim, still present under colonial authority protection, immediately recognized what was happening. "Commander, you need to hear this. The indigenous life form is accessing the planet's natural acoustic storage system." The sounds that emerged from the crystalline walls were hauntingly clear, David's voice coordinating the sabotage, Dr. Vasquez's confirmation of the chair's technical vulnerabilities, even the distinct frequency signature of the jamming signal that had caused Margaret's crash. The planet itself had become a witness to David's crimes. David's enhanced hearing detected the replay immediately, and his modified psychology finally reached its breaking point. "That's impossible," he screamed, his artificial calm shattering completely. "Animals can't manipulate technology. This is some kind of corporate espionage." "Actually," Dr. Webb interjected, consulting his analysis of Fenris's vocalizations, "the acoustic patterns suggest intelligence levels comparable to advanced AI systems. This species possesses natural abilities that exceed our current understanding of biological computation." Commander Vasquez Santos studied the acoustic evidence with professional interest. "Are you telling me that this alien creature witnessed the attempted murder and can testify to what it observed?" "More than that," Dr. Kim replied excitedly. "The resonance patterns indicate it can access and replay acoustic data stored in the planet's crystalline formations. It's essentially a biological recording device with perfect memory." The implication sent shockwaves through David's legal team. If an alien intelligence could serve as a witness in colonial courts, their clients' careful denials would become meaningless. The creature's testimony would carry the weight of objective evidence, impossible to dismiss or discredit. Margaret decided it was time to reveal herself. Using her neural interface, she activated the facility's internal transport system, commanding a maintenance elevator to carry her and Fenris up from the tunnels to the main conference level. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the supposedly dead CEO in her damaged hover chair, accompanied by her alien companion. "Hello, David," Margaret said quietly, her voice carrying all the authority of a woman who had built an interstellar empire through strength and determination. "I understand you've been telling people I'm dead." The silence in the room was absolute. David's security forces, already disarmed by colonial authority troops, could only stare at the woman they had been told to mourn. His legal advisors began frantically reviewing their options, realizing that their client had lied to them about fundamental facts. David himself seemed frozen, his enhanced reflexes useless against this impossible development. "Mother," he whispered, his modified features showing genuine shock for the first time in years. "How did you—" The chair was completely sabotaged. "Yes, it was," Margaret confirmed, guiding her backup hover chair closer to her son. "By Dr. Elena Vasquez using equipment from your personal transport. The same Dr. Vasquez who provided you with illegal genetic modifications designed to eliminate your capacity for empathy." Commander Vasquez Santos immediately signaled her forensic team to locate and detain Dr. Vasquez, while recording Margaret's testimony for the official investigation. "Mrs. Chen, are you prepared to provide a complete statement regarding today's events?" "I am," Margaret replied. "But the most important witness isn't me. It's Fenris." The alien wolf stepped forward, his amber eyes fixed on David with unmistakable intelligence. When Fenris began to sing again, the crystalline formations throughout the facility responded with a symphony of preserved evidence. Every word of David's conspiracy, every moment of his betrayal, every detail of his attempt to murder his own mother, all of it preserved in the planet's natural memory, and now, accessible through Fenris's remarkable abilities, David's enhanced aggression programming triggered one final, desperate attempt at violence. He lunged toward his mother, intending to finish what he had started that morning. But Fenris was ready. The alien wolf intercepted David's attack with inhuman speed, his 6 legs providing perfect stability as he knocked the enhanced human to the ground. Colonial authority troops immediately restrained David, applying quantum shackles that would prevent any further escape attempts. As they dragged him away, his artificially modified features contorted with rage and desperation. "You can't trust that thing," he screamed at Commander Vasquez Santos. "It's an alien. It's manipulating all of you. My mother is a traitor to humanity." But his words fell on deaf ears. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimony irrefutable, and the witness beyond any reasonable doubt. David Chen would face trial for attempted murder, corporate fraud, and conspiracy, charges that carried life imprisonment under colonial law. Margaret watched her son being led away with a mixture of sadness and relief. The empire she had built would survive, but the family she had hoped to preserve was lost forever. David's genetic modifications had transformed him into something that could no longer be called human, a cautionary tale about the dangers of enhancing the body while destroying the soul. Fenris moved to her side, his warm presence a reminder that loyalty and intelligence could take many forms across the galaxy. The alien wolf had proven that humanity's greatest allies might not be human at all, but beings who understood the values that made humanity worth preserving. Commander Vasquez Santos approached with her preliminary report already complete. Mrs. Chen, the Colonial Authority, will need extensive testimony about your son's activities. But I want you to know that your case will establish important precedents about alien intelligence and testimony in our legal system. Margaret nodded, understanding the broader implications of what had happened. Fenris and his species deserve recognition as sapient beings with full legal rights. Today has proven that intelligence and moral character aren't limited to humanity. As the investigation continued around them, Margaret and Fenris looked out through the facility's massive windows at the alien landscape that had become their home. The twin moons were rising over the crystalline cliffs, and somewhere in those formations, the truth would be preserved forever, a testament to the power of loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond between two very different species united by a common cause. 6 months after David Chen's trial, Margaret stood before the Galactic Senate in the heart of New Geneva Station, preparing to deliver the most important speech of her life. The amphitheater held representatives from 47 human colonies and 12 allied alien species, all gathered to witness the ratification of the Interspecies Intelligence Recognition Act. Fenris sat beside her hover chair, no longer just her companion but officially recognized as the first non-human sapient to serve as a legal witness in a colonial court. His testimony had not only convicted David of attempted murder, but had revolutionized humanity's understanding of intelligence and consciousness across species lines. Distinguished representatives, Margaret began, her neural interface projecting her words in 17 different languages simultaneously. 6 months ago, my son tried to murder me for control of a mining empire. He failed not because of human law enforcement or corporate security, but because an alien being chose to risk his life to save mine. The audience listened intently as Margaret recounted the events on Kepler 442b, the acoustic testimony that had exposed David's crimes, and the remarkable intelligence displayed by Fenris and his species. Behind her, holographic displays showed the crystalline formations that had preserved the evidence, the complex harmonic patterns that proved sophisticated communication abilities, and the genetic analyses that confirmed the alien wolves possessed neural complexity rivaling advanced AI systems. For too long, Margaret continued, humanity has approached the galaxy as conquerors rather than neighbors. We have treated other species as resources to be exploited or obstacles to be overcome. But Fenris has shown us another path, one where intelligence is recognized regardless of its biological origin, where loyalty transcends species boundaries, and where justice depends on truth rather than political power. Dr. Sarah Kim, now appointed as the Director of Interspecies Communication Research, provided scientific testimony supporting the Recognition Act. Her analysis of Fenris's abilities had revealed that his species possessed not just intelligence but a form of biological quantum processing that allowed them to interface directly with crystalline formations and electronic systems. The implications extend far beyond legal testimony. Dr. Kim explained to the assembly, this species could revolutionize our understanding of quantum computing, mineral processing, and even interstellar communication. But more importantly, they have demonstrated that cooperation between species produces results that neither could achieve alone. The vote, when it came, was overwhelming. 45 human colonies and all 12 alien representatives supported the Recognition Act, establishing legal precedent for non-human sapient testimony and creating frameworks for identifying and protecting intelligent species. Throughout human space, David Chen watched the proceedings from his prison cell on Titan Correctional Facility, his enhanced features permanently scarred by the removal of his illegal genetic modifications. The Colonial Authority had determined that his psychological alterations constituted evidence tampering, since they had been specifically designed to eliminate his capacity for ethical behavior. The reversal process had been painful and incomplete, leaving him with fragmented memories and uncertain emotions. Dr. Elena Vasquez occupied the neighboring cell, her medical license permanently revoked for her role in the conspiracy, Her testimony during David's trial had revealed the extent of black market genetic modification among corporate elites, triggering a galaxy-wide investigation into illegal enhancement programs. 25 years to life, David's cellmate had informed him after the sentencing. That's what you get for trying to kill your own mother. But the real punishment is knowing that an alien dog was smarter than you. Margaret returned to Kepler 442b after the Senate session, but her role had evolved far beyond managing a mining operation. The Chen Consortium had become a model for interspecies cooperation, employing teams of human engineers and alien consultants to develop new extraction technologies that worked with the planet's natural systems, rather than against them. Fenris had become something of a celebrity, featured in documentary films and scientific journals across human space. But he seemed most content during their morning inspections, trotting alongside Margaret's chair as they toured the facilities that had been rebuilt according to his species environmental recommendations. The mining operation now operated in harmony with the planet's acoustic properties, using the crystalline formations to create a communication network that connected human workers with alien advisors across thousands of kilometers. Production had increased by 40%, while environmental impact had decreased by 60%. Proof that cooperation produced better results than exploitation. One morning, as they completed their usual inspection route, Margaret noticed something remarkable happening near the Meridian Cliffs. A group of young alien wolves had emerged from the wilderness, approaching the human settlement with cautious curiosity. Led by an elderly female whose blue fur carried silver markings of age and wisdom, they seemed to be seeking contact with the humans who had recognized their intelligence. "They know what you did," Margaret told Fenris as they watched the approaching delegation. "Your people understand that humans can be trusted when we choose to be." Fenris responded with one of his complex songs, and the visiting wolves replied with harmonies that made the surrounding crystals ring like bells. Through her neural interface, Margaret could detect patterns in the acoustic exchange that suggested formal diplomatic protocols, the beginning of true interspecies communication. Dr. Kim arrived within hours, bringing her latest translation equipment and a team of xenolinguists, eager to establish formal contact with Fenris's people. The conversations that followed would later be recognized as humanity's first genuine diplomatic exchange with a non-technological sapient species. The alien wolves, it turned out, had been aware of human activities for decades but had remained hidden until Fenris's testimony proved that humans could recognize intelligence in non-human forms. They possessed detailed knowledge of the planet's geology, weather patterns, and ecological systems, information that would revolutionize human colonial science. More importantly, they offered something that humans had rarely encountered in their expansion across the galaxy: friendship based on mutual respect rather than mutual exploitation. As Margaret Chen entered her 80s, she reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. A war injury that should have ended her career had instead taught her to rely on technology and alien assistance. A son's betrayal that should have destroyed her empire had instead created a new model for human-alien cooperation. A simple act of kindness toward a wounded alien pup had ultimately changed the course of human civilization. Fenris, now recognized as an ambassador between species, had established communication protocols that were being tested on 17 different worlds. His offspring, raised in the cooperative environment of the reformed mining facility, showed even greater abilities to interface with human technology while maintaining their species' natural wisdom about environmental systems. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless forms of life that humans were only beginning to encounter. But thanks to one remarkable alien wolf and the woman who chose to trust him, humanity had learned an essential lesson. True strength came not from conquering other species, but from earning their friendship and respect. Standing on the observation deck of her headquarters, Margaret watched the sun set over the crystalline cliffs where her son had tried to kill her. The formations glowed with their characteristic luminescence, preserving the acoustic memories of that terrible day alongside countless others, a permanent record of how humanity had chosen to evolve beyond its violent past. Beside her, Fenris sang softly to himself, his voice carrying across the alien landscape to where his people waited in the wilderness. It was a song of hope, of friendship, and of the infinite possibilities that opened when different species chose to trust each other rather than fear their differences. In the distance, the lights of New Genesis Colony twinkled against the alien night, humanity's first truly integrated settlement, where human ingenuity and alien wisdom worked together to build something greater than either could achieve alone. It was, Margaret knew, exactly the kind of future that was worth fighting for.